Thank you, Karine. You talked a little bit about privacy today. Does the president think it's appropriate for abortion rights protesters to intimidate Supreme Court justices when they're out to eat, like Brett Kavanaugh, who had to sneak out of a steakhouse last night?
We have been pretty clear on this. The president has been very clear that we condemn any intimidation of judges in this specific question here. We have condemned that. We have signed. He has signed a piece of legislation making sure that they have the protection that they need.
But you never said don't go to their houses. So as long as they're peaceful, would you say don't go to a restaurant that a Supreme Court justice is at?
What I'm saying is we condemn any intimidation when it comes to judges. The president has talked about this, and we have put out statements in his name and many times.
If protesters know that a justice is out to eat at a restaurant, that they can go and protest as long as they are what you consider peaceful. That's okay.
Well, we have said that we want to see peaceful protests. That's what we have said. We want to see the protests be peaceful, but when it comes to intimidation, that is something that we have condemned.
So where's the line? If these protesters can go to a justice's house and they can go to a restaurant, where is it that you don't think it's appropriate for a group of protesters to go?
I just laid out, you asked me about intimidation. We condemn intimidation. We condemn any violence, and we've been very clear. It is a clear definition of what violence is and what intimidation is. Peaceful protest, people should be allowed to be able to do that.
In a restaurant?
If it's outside of a restaurant, if it's peaceful, for sure.
Really?
Peaceful protest. Your first question to me was intimidation.
So these justices, because protesters do not agree with an opinion that they signed on to, have no right to privacy, is what you're saying.
But Peter, this is people have the right to, this is what a democracy is. People have the right
to privacy?
Of course people have a right to privacy, but people also have a right to be able to protest peacefully.
Is that
peacefully?
safe?
It's the intimidation and the violence that we condemn.
Is that safe?
Peter,
isn't that creating a potential really bad situation when there are people, even if they're being peaceful at the time, they're angry, and that's why they would be there, right?
Peter, we have condemned any intimidation and violence. I said peaceful protest should be allowed. We do condemn intimidation, and we condemn any violence at any whatever type of violence. We've been very clear on that.
So President Biden
and the president has signed legislation that was passed in a bipartisan way in Congress to make sure that the judges have the protection that they need. This administration has provided U.S. Marshals through the DOJ to make sure that these judges are protected. So we have shown how we want to make sure that intimidation and violence is not the way to go. It is not the way to have a political discourse. I'm done here, Peter. Go ahead.
The Mexican president will be here next week. Want to get from you what President Biden expects out of that, and secondly, if you can respond to the criticism from the Mexican president over the spying charges against Julian Assange.
Well, I'll speak to the AMLO meeting, which you're speaking to. Look, the president and the first lady look forward to welcoming the president of Mexico and the first lady here to Washington next week. It's going to be a bilateral visit, as we've spoken about before, and they'll have an opportunity to work on the summit, to carry out the work of the Summit of the Americas forward. That was the summit that happened in Los Angeles not too long ago, just a few short weeks ago. They will discuss a broad and deep agenda, including joint efforts on migration, food, security, and economic opportunity. And so the president looks forward to having that conversation, and he's going to welcome them next week.
Can you address that second part? The president made some very critical comments about tearing down the Statue of Liberty. If the U.S. proceeds with that, he's offered asylum there. What's the administration's response?
Look, we see AMLO, the president of Mexico, as a partner. They're welcomed here next week. We're going to have a bilateral meeting. There will be many conversations that will be had, and I'm going to leave it as that.
Can I just follow up with one last question?
Yeah, sure.
It's been reported that the president is considering giving a speech after the January 6 hearings are completed. Can you discuss that with us, and what would be the intent of that?
I cannot confirm a speech that the president may or may not be having. That is not right now. We are letting the January 6th committee hearing go and do their jobs. The president has, as he has said many times, and we have said many times, thinks their work is important. It is an independent process that they are, a bipartisan independent process that they're running, and we believe, as the hearings are going on, we believe it's important for the American people to see exactly what happened on that day. January 6th was a dark day for our democracy. It was an attack on our